The night did not begin with noise. It began with a pause that felt accidental at first, like a technical error nobody wanted to acknowledge. The arena was full, the show was live, yet something in the air refused to settle. People shifted in their seats without knowing why. The crowd noise rose and fell in uneven waves. Not excitement, not boredom, but uncertainty. Even before anything happened, the night already felt heavier than it should have been. A show that was supposed to move forward instead hovered, suspended in a strange, uncomfortable calm that no one could explain. Commentary tried to fill the space, but their voices sounded thinner than usual, like they were speaking through hesitation. Words came out, but they didn't land. The usual rhythm was gone. There was no confidence behind the reactions, only cautious observation. It felt like everyone was waiting for a signal that never came. Screens showed the ring, the crowd, the ramp, then back again, as if searching for something missing rather than highlighting what was present. The audience sensed it too. Phones were raised, then lowered. Cheers started, then died halfway through. It wasn't silence yet, but it was close. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears. The kind that makes people glance at each other, silently asking if they felt it too. This wasn't anticipation. Anticipation has energy. This was closer to an ease. A slow realization that the night was drifting somewhere unfamiliar. Backstage, the tension was already forming, though the viewers couldn't see it. Producers spoke in shorter sentences. Talent pacing in hallways stopped pretending they were relaxed. No one knew why! Exactly. Nothing had gone wrong on paper. The schedule was intact. The plans were clear, yet the pressure in the building kept rising. Like the walls themselves were aware of something about to happen that the people weren't ready to face. When the lights dimmed slightly, not dramatically, just enough to be noticeable, the reaction wasn't cheers. It was confusion. The crowd leaned forward instead of standing up. Commentary hesitated, unsure whether to speak or wait. A few seconds stretched longer than they should have. In those seconds, the mood shifted from strange to wrong. This wasn't how returns started. This wasn't how moments were built. It felt unplanned, even if it wasn't. Nothing appeared on the stage yet. No music hit. No announcement was made. Just that pause, growing heavier, growing louder in its own way. And somewhere in that silence, the audience began to understand that whatever was coming wasn't meant to entertain them. It was meant to confront them. The silence didn't break. It thickened. Commentary tried again, voices quieter now, less performative, more human. They spoke as if unsure whether they were allowed to fill the space, as if talking too loudly might trigger something. The crowd mirrored that restraint. The usual chants never started. No one wanted to be the first to make noise and be wrong about it. Every eye stayed fixed on the entrance, not in excitement, but in guarded attention. Then the screen changed. Not explosively. Not with flashing graphics or dramatic cues. It simply shifted, like a door opening without a sound. A single image appeared, stark and unwelcoming. The arena lighting didn't brighten it. It didn't enhance it. The image felt exposed, raw, like it wasn't meant to be shown under these lights. The reaction was delayed. People needed a second to process what they were seeing. A murmur rolled through the crowd, uneven and fractured. Some recognized it immediately. Others sensed its importance without understanding why. Commentary stopped again. This time, not by choice, but because there was nothing safe to say. The image lingered longer than comfortable, refusing to move the moment along. It demanded attention without offering explanation. When the image faded, the ramp remained empty. That was worse. The absence became oppressive. The crowd noise dropped further, replaced by scattered whispers and nervous laughter that quickly died. This wasn't the reaction of people being surprised. It was the reaction of people realizing they might be witnessing something they weren't emotionally prepared for. Backstage, screens showed the same feed. Conversations stopped mid-set. Some wrestlers stood frozen, others sat down slowly, as if their legs had given up before their minds caught up. No one smiled. No one celebrated. Even those who had been waiting for this moment felt something colder settle in their stomachs. This wasn't a return that promised opportunity. It felt like a return that threatened stability. Finally, a figure stepped into view. Not rushed. Not posed. Just present. Jade Cargill didn't announce herself. She didn't acknowledge the crowd. She didn't need to. Her presence alone shifted the atmosphere completely. The arena didn't erupt. It stalled. Silence snapped into disbelief. Some fans stood instinctively. Others remained seated, hands over mouths, unsure what emotion they were supposed to feel. Commentary found their voices, but they trembled. Words like unexpected and unbelievable floated out, hollow and insufficient. Jade moved slowly, deliberately, every step measured. This wasn't dominance through aggression! This was dominance through inevitability. The crowd watched, frozen, as if sudden movement might draw her attention. There was no smile, no anger, just focus. And in that focus, the audience felt it clearly now. We wasn't ready for this. And neither were they. As Jade Cargill reached the ring, the energy didn't spike, it sank. The ring, usually a place of spectacle, felt smaller with her inside it. She didn't climb in dramatically. She entered like someone stepping into a space they already owned. The crowd remained divided, not between cheers and boos, but between reactions and paralysis. Some fans tried to chant her name, but the sound fractured, collapsing under its own uncertainty. Commentary spoke carefully now, choosing words like they were walking across thin ice. They acknowledged the moment, but not its meaning, because no one could define it yet. This wasn't framed as a triumph. It wasn't even framed as a challenge. It existed in a space without labels, and that was what made it uncomfortable. Jade stood still, letting the silence do the work. Inside the ring, other wrestlers watched from a distance, both physically and emotionally. Some leaned against the ropes, others stood in corners, all of them suddenly aware of their own vulnerability. Futures that had seemed solid hours ago now felt fragile. Plans they believed in cracked quietly in their minds. No one wanted to meet her eyes. Those who did looked away quickly, as if they had seen something they couldn't unsee. Backstage cameras caught nothing officially, but tension leaked through every corridor. Agents whispered. Executives stared at monitors with tight expressions. This wasn't chaos yet. It was pressure building, controlled but dangerous. The kind of pressure that doesn't explode immediately, but reshapes everything around it. Phones buzzed in pockets. Messages went unanswered. The media reaction began before the segment even ended. Social feeds flooded with disbelief. Arguments, fear masked as excitement. Analysts scrambled to react without understanding what they were reacting to. Headlines formed too quickly, asking questions instead of making statements. What does this mean? Why now? Who approved this? None of them had answers. Jade finally moved, stepping forward, not toward an opponent, but toward the hard camera. Her expression didn't change. She didn't speak. She didn't gesture. Yet the message landed harder than any promo ever could. This wasn't about reclaiming a spot. This was about redefining the environment she had stepped back into. When the segment ended, it didn't feel finished. The show moved on because it had to, but the weight stayed. Matches happened in a shadow. Performances felt smaller. The audience couldn't fully re-engage. They were still processing what they had witnessed, still trying to assign meaning to something that refused to be neatly understood. By the end of the night, no one was celebrating the return. They were discussing consequences. And that was when it became clear. This wasn't the moment people would remember for its shock. It was the moment they would remember for what it broke. The hours after the show were heavier than the moment itself. Backstage, conversations turned serious fast. Wrestlers who had never questioned their direction suddenly did. The presence of Jade Cargill changed calculations instantly. Opportunities felt threatened. Timelines shifted without warning. Some felt inspired in silence. Others felt exposed. The locker room wasn't loud. It was subdued, like a room after bad news settles in. Authority figures faced questions they weren't prepared to answer. Plans that had seemed airtight now felt theoretical. There was pressure from every side. Talent wanted clarity. Media wanted explanations. Fans wanted reassurance. None of it could be given honestly yet, because the truth was simple and uncomfortable. This return wasn't clean. It wasn't contained. It had introduced uncertainty into a system built on control. Jade herself remained distant. Reports described her as calm, focused, unreadable. She didn't seek validation. She didn't explain her intentions. That silence unsettled people more than any statement could have. Some admired it. Others feared it. Everyone felt it. The idea that she didn't need to say anything challenged the structure around her. Outside the company, the debate intensified. Was this the right move? Was this reckless? Was this necessary? Supporters framed it as power. Critics framed it as disruption. Both were right. The public conversation spiraled, fueled by clips, screenshots, speculation, yet none of it touched the core truth forming quietly behind the scenes. This return carried a cost. Family and personal lives felt the impact too. Attention followed Jade everywhere, intrusive and relentless. Expectations piled up instantly. She wasn't just representing herself anymore. She was carrying the weight of a moment that had already grown beyond her control. Pressure doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it arrives as responsibility inside WWE. The realization set in slowly. This wasn't something that could be undone or softened. The presence had been established. The tone had been set. Adjustments would be made. Stories rewritten. Paths altered. Not because of panic, but because ignoring this would be worse. The system had been challenged. Not violently, but fundamentally. As days passed, the shock faded, replaced by something more lasting. Tension. Anticipations. Darker cousin. People weren't asking what Jade would do next. They were asking what this environment would become now that she was back inside it. And that question had no comforting answers. Time did what it always does. It moved forward, regardless of readiness. The initial shock dulled, but the weight remained. Jade Cargill's return stopped being a moment and became a presence, woven into every decision, every conversation. Her silence continued to speak louder than explanations ever could. The absence of clarity forced everyone to confront their own assumptions about control, power, and security. For some wrestlers, this became motivation. They trained harder, spoke less, watched more closely. For others, it introduced doubt that lingered long after the cameras stopped rolling. Careers are built on momentum, and momentum doesn't survive. Uncertainty is every appearance Jade made, even without action, recalibrated the room. She didn't need to dominate matches to dominate space. Authority figures learned quickly that managing this wasn't about booking. It was about containment, about balance, about preventing the structure from cracking under the pressure of a presence that didn't fit neatly into existing narratives. This wasn't rebellion. It was something more complex. It was inevitability pressing against design. Public perception shifted to fans who initially celebrated grew quieter. Critics who dismissed the moment began to reconsider. The conversation matured, darkened. This wasn't a highlight reel return. It was a stress test. And not everyone liked what it revealed. The industry thrives on spectacle, but it survives on stability. Jade's return questioned whether those two could still coexist. Personally, the weight followed her. Expectations hardened. Every choice scrutinized. Every silence interpreted. She carried it without complaint, without visible strain. But pressure leaves marks, even when they aren't visible. The line between strength and burden blurred. Looking back, people would argue about the second she appeared. They would debate whether it was brilliant or dangerous, necessary or disruptive. But the truth sat somewhere quieter. This wasn't about shock value. It was about discomfort, about confronting something the system hadn't prepared for. And as the weeks turned into months, one question refused to fade. Not about championships or matches or legacies. A simpler, heavier question lingered. When someone returns and changes everything without saying a word, are they here to rebuild the future or to expose what was already broken?